My hands trembled as I turned the key in the lock of my new townhouse. At 32, after years of 10-hour shifts and weekend overtime, I finally had a place to call my own. Not borrowed, not rented, mine. "Welcome home, Marissa," I whispered to myself, pushing open the door. The empty rooms echoed with possibility. For someone who grew up sharing everything, including my mother's divided attention, having a space that belonged only to me felt revolutionary. I'd spent months planning every detail, saving every extra dollar. The centerpiece would be my living room furniture. Not just any furniture, a custom Italian collection I'd fallen in love with at first sight. The creamy leather sofa with hand-stitched details, the marble coffee table with brass accents, the matching armchairs that felt like clouds when you sat in them. Price tag, $13,800. When my coworkers heard, they gasped. "That's a down payment on a car, Marissa." But they didn't understand. This wasn't just furniture, it was proof. Proof that I'd made it despite everyone who said I wouldn't, especially my mother. The day my furniture arrived, I invited Mom to see it. She walked through my front door, her eyes narrowing as she surveyed my carefully designed space. "All this for one person?" she said, running her finger along the back of my new sofa. "Seems wasteful when your sister's struggling with rent again." I should have expected it. Every achievement of mine came with the same response. "But what about Candace?" "Mom, I worked hard for this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can't you just be happy for me?" She shrugged. "I'm just saying Candace could use help more than you need fancy Italian sofas." That night after she left, I sat alone on my beautiful new furniture, trying to enjoy the moment I'd worked so hard for. I had no idea that in just 3 days, I'd come home to find it all gone. Empty spaces where my dreams had been, cheap, stained furniture in its place, and a note from my mother explaining why she'd taken everything. Before I even tell you what happened, let me ask you this. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most? If you have, you'll feel this story deep in your soul. And if you know that kind of pain, hit subscribe. Not because it helps me, but because stories like this remind us that sometimes silence and strength are the best revenge. To understand why my mother's betrayal cut so deep, you need to know our history. The pattern started long before my furniture disappeared. Growing up, our family had 2 sets of rules, Candace's and mine. When I was 7, I saved my allowance for 6 months to buy a bicycle. Candace liked it, so Mom gave it to her. "You're the big sister," she said. "Big sisters share." 2 weeks later, Candace left it in the rain to rust. When I was 12, I won the school science fair. Mom skipped the ceremony because Candace had a cold. Not the flu, a cold. My trophy sat on my desk while Candace's participation ribbons covered the fridge. At 16, I got straight A's and a part-time job. Mom's response? "Don't think you're better than everyone else." That same year, Candace failed 3 classes and crashed Mom's car. "She's just finding herself," Mom explained. "College was my escape." I earned a scholarship that covered tuition but worked 2 jobs for living expenses. Meanwhile, Mom drained her retirement fund to pay for Candace's 4th attempt at community college. "Your sister needs more support," she'd say. When I graduated with honors in interior design, Mom attended the ceremony but left early. "Candace is having boy troubles," she whispered as she slipped out. I watched other families celebrating together while I took myself to dinner alone. This became my normal. Achieve, be dismissed, repeat. Each time, I built another wall around my heart. By my late 20s, I'd mastered emotional detachment. Mom would call only when she needed something, usually money for Candace's latest crisis. I'd transfer the funds without argument, telling myself it was easier than fighting. "You're so cold," Marissa, Mom complained once. Why can't you be warm and giving like your sister? I almost laughed. Candace had never given anyone anything except excuses. When I turned 30, I made a decision. I would stop seeking my mother's approval. I would build my life on my terms, my townhouse, my furniture, my boundaries. For 2 years, I held firm. I visited on holidays, but left when the comparisons started. I sent birthday gifts, but declined emergency loans. I answered calls, but ended conversations that turned manipulative. I thought I was finally free. I thought they couldn't hurt me anymore. I was wrong. My phone rang at 5:30 a.m. on a Friday. The kind of early morning call that makes your stomach drop before you even answer. Marissa, it's David. My boss's voice was tense. The Wellington account, they want to move everything up. We need the presentation Monday instead of Thursday. The Wellington account was massive, potentially career-changing, but the new deadline meant working straight through the weekend. I'll be there in an hour, I promised. I packed quickly, grabbing clothes for 3 days at the office. As I locked my door, I paused to look back at my beautiful living room, sunlight just beginning to catch on the marble coffee table. I'd returned Sunday evening, exhausted but accomplished. What I didn't know, my mother was already plotting. Later, security footage would show everything. At 10:17 a.m. Saturday, Mom's silver sedan pulled into my driveway. Behind her, Candace arrived with her boyfriend Tyler and his pickup truck. Mom used her emergency key, the one I'd given her only for actual emergencies, to let them all inside. She doesn't need all this, Mom's voice echoed on the camera footage. Let's be quick about it. For the next 3 hours, they emptied my living room. The sofa I'd saved for 2 years to buy, the coffee table imported from Milan, the custom bookshelves, the artwork, every single piece. In their place, they unloaded items from a storage unit Candace had abandoned 6 months earlier. A sagging couch with suspicious stains, a coffee table with water rings and cigarette burns, a bookshelf missing half its shelves. My security camera captured Mom directing the placement. Put that couch where her fancy one was. She'll get used to it. When they finished, Mom wrote a note and left it on the table. Then she locked my door behind her, climbed into her car, and drove away, my beautiful furniture disappearing in Tyler's truck. Candace posted on social media that night, "New furniture day. Sometimes the universe provides exactly what you need." The photo showed my coffee table in her apartment. Meanwhile, I worked through the night on my presentation, completely unaware that across town, my living room now sat in my sister's apartment, and my home had been filled with garbage. My mother had decided to redistribute my wealth, without my knowledge or consent. Sunday evening arrived after 48 sleepless hours. The Wellington presentation was perfect, my boss ecstatic. I drove home in a fog of exhaustion, dreaming only of sinking into my soft leather sofa. The moment I opened my front door, that dream shattered. The smell hit me first, a mix of mildew, cigarettes, and something worse. I flipped on the lights, convinced I'd entered the wrong house. Where my beautiful cream sectional had been now sat a brown-stained couch, its cushions misshapen and fabric torn. My imported marble coffee table was replaced by a wobbly wooden one covered in cup rings and burns. My bookshelves were gone, replaced by a particle board unit missing shelves. What? I couldn't even finish the thought. I stumbled forward, touching the strange furniture as if it might dissolve like a bad dream. It didn't. My heart hammered against my ribs. Had I been robbed? But nothing else was missing. My television, my kitchen appliances, my bedroom furniture. Just my living room, my pride and joy, had been violated. Then I saw it. A folded note on the coffee table, my mother's handwriting instantly recognizable. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Marissa, don't be dramatic about the furniture. Candace needed it more than you do. You can always buy more with your fancy job. The stuff we brought from her storage unit works just fine for one person. Family helps family. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times, the words refusing to make sense. My mother had stolen from me, walked into my home and taken what wasn't hers to give. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I sank onto the edge of the stained couch, immediately jumping back up when I felt something wet seep through my pants. Tears burned my eyes, not sad tears, but the kind that come with pure rage. I grabbed my phone and found Candace's social media post. My furniture arranged in her apartment, her smiling face perched on my sofa. Caption, "Home sweet home, so blessed." 48 hours without sleep vanished. Exhaustion transformed into white-hot fury. They thought I would just accept this. They were about to learn how wrong they were. My phone rang at 5:30 a.m. on a Friday, the kind of early morning call that makes your stomach drop before you even answer. "Marissa, it's David." My boss's voice was tense. "The Wellington account. They want to move everything up. We need the presentation Monday instead of Thursday." The Wellington account was massive, potentially career-changing, but the new deadline meant working straight through the weekend. "I'll be there in an hour," I promised. I packed quickly, grabbing clothes for 3 days at the office. As I locked my door, I paused to look back at my beautiful living room, sunlight just beginning to catch on the marble coffee table. I'd return Sunday evening, exhausted but accomplished. What I didn't know, my mother was already plotting. Later, security footage would show everything. At 10:17 a.m. Saturday, Mom's silver sedan pulled into my driveway. Behind her, Candace arrived with her boyfriend Tyler and his pickup truck. Mom used her emergency key, the one I'd given her only for actual emergencies, to let them all inside. "She doesn't need all this," Mom's voice echoed on the camera footage. "Let's be quick about it." For the next 3 hours, they emptied my living room. The sofa I'd saved for 2 years to buy, the coffee table imported from Milan, the custom bookshelves, the artwork, every single piece. In their place, they unloaded items from a storage unit Candace had abandoned 6 months earlier. A sagging couch with suspicious stains, a coffee table with water rings and cigarette burns, a bookshelf missing half its shelves. My security camera captured Mom directing the placement. "Put that couch where her fancy one was. She'll get used to it." When they finished, Mom wrote a note and left it on the table. Then she locked my door behind her, climbed into her car, and drove away, my beautiful furniture disappearing in Tyler's truck. Candace posted on social media that night, "New furniture day. Sometimes the universe provides exactly what you need." The photo showed my coffee table in her apartment. Meanwhile, I worked through the night on my presentation, completely unaware that across town, my living room now sat in my sister's apartment, and my home had been filled with garbage. My mother had decided to redistribute my wealth without my knowledge or consent. Sunday evening arrived after 48 sleepless hours. The Wellington presentation was perfect, my boss ecstatic. I drove home in a fog of exhaustion, dreaming only of sinking into my soft leather sofa. The moment I opened my front door, that dream shattered. The smell hit me first, a mix of mildew, cigarettes, and something worse. I flipped on the lights, convinced I'd entered the wrong house. Where my beautiful cream sectional had been, now sat a brown-stained couch, its cushions misshapen and fabric torn. My imported marble coffee table was replaced by a wobbly wooden one, covered in cup rings and burns. My bookshelves were gone, replaced by a particle board unit missing shelves. What? I couldn't even finish the thought. I stumbled forward, touching the strange furniture as if it might dissolve like a bad dream. It didn't. My heart hammered against my ribs. Had I been robbed? But nothing else was missing. My television, my kitchen appliances, my bedroom furniture. Just my living room, my pride and joy, had been violated. Then I saw it. A folded note on the coffee table, my mother's handwriting instantly recognizable. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Marissa, don't be dramatic about the furniture. Candace needed it more than you do. You can always buy more with your fancy job. The stuff we brought from her storage unit works just fine for one person. Family helps family. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times, the words refusing to make sense. My mother had stolen from me, walked into my home and taken what wasn't hers to give. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I sank onto the edge of the stained couch, immediately jumping back up when I felt something wet seep through my pants. Tears burned my eyes, not sad tears, but the kind that come with pure rage. I grabbed my phone and found Candace's social media post, my furniture arranged in her apartment, her smiling face perched on my sofa. Caption, "Home sweet home, so blessed." 48 hours without sleep vanished. Exhaustion transformed into white-hot fury. They thought I would just accept this. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I didn't even change clothes. Still in my work suit, I grabbed my keys and drove straight to my mother's house, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The 15-minute drive felt like hours, my mind racing with every betrayal she'd ever committed against me. When I pulled into her driveway, I spotted Candace's car. Of course she'd be here. They were probably laughing about how they'd gotten away with it. I didn't knock. I used my key and pushed open the door. There they were, my mother and sister, sitting in the kitchen drinking tea like they hadn't just violated every boundary imaginable. "Where is it?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Mom looked up, completely unfazed. "Oh, Marissa, did you get my note? Where is my furniture?" Each word felt like fire in my throat. Candace at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "It's at my place. Mom said you'd be okay with it." "Okay with it?" I laughed, the sound hollow and harsh. "You broke into my house and stole $13,800 worth of furniture. How would I be okay with that?" Mom sighed like I was being unreasonable. "It wasn't breaking in. I have a key, and it's not stealing when it's family." "That's exactly what it is," I said. "You had no right?" "I had every right," Mom interrupted. "You've always been selfish. Your sister needed help. Then help her yourself. Don't give away what isn't yours." Candace stood up. "Look, I'm sorry you're upset, but Mom said—" "I don't care what she said. It wasn't hers to give." I was shouting now, years of swallowed anger finally boiling over. Mom set down her teacup with a sharp click. "You need to watch your tone, young lady. After everything I've done for you—" "What exactly have you done for me, Mom?" "Name one time you put me first. One time." The kitchen fell silent. Mom's face hardened. "You've always been cold," she said finally. "Always thinking about yourself. Candace needed a fresh start. That furniture was going to waste in your empty house." "It's not waste, it's mine." My voice dropped low. "And I want it back. Today." Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Don't be dramatic. You can buy new furniture." In that moment, something inside me broke and reformed. The daughter, desperate for approval, died. In her place stood a woman done with being used. You know what hurts the most? Not what they did, but that I still tried to make them proud after everything. If you've ever given people too many chances, you already understand this pain. Don't just scroll, subscribe, join people who've been through it too, because you deserve stories that make you feel seen. I left my mother's house without another word. She called after me, but I didn't turn back. Something had changed. The rules we'd played by my entire life no longer applied. As I drove home, I remembered the security cameras I'd installed when I bought the townhouse. I'd almost forgotten they were there, a precaution my home insurance company suggested for a discount on my premium. Back at home, I opened my laptop and accessed the cloud storage where the footage was saved. There it was, the entire theft captured in high definition, my mother directing traffic like a conductor, Candace and her boyfriend struggling with my sofa, the smiles on their faces as they replaced my cherished possessions with garbage. I downloaded every second of footage, backing it up to 3 different places. This wasn't just evidence, it was power. Next, I pulled out my filing cabinet and found all the receipts and ownership papers for my furniture. The itemized list totaled exactly $13,807.43, money I'd earned through overtime, weekend shifts, and skipped vacations. I photographed the stained, broken furniture they'd left behind. The couch had water damage so severe that mold grew inside the cushions. The coffee table wobbled dangerously. The bookshelf couldn't hold more than a few paperbacks without threatening to collapse. While documenting everything, I discovered something else. On my counter sat an opened letter, an invitation to a housewarming at Candace's new apartment. The date, this coming Saturday. My heart beat faster as I read the invitation. Candace was planning to show off her new home transformation to a group of family, friends, and neighbors, people who had watched me save for years to afford the very pieces she now claimed as her own. Even more infuriating, my mother had gone through my mail to find this invitation. She'd opened it before I could, probably to make sure I wouldn't attend and ruin their plan. I checked Candace's social media again. A new post showed her prepping for the big reveal, with my furniture artfully arranged in her living room. Caption: "Can't wait to welcome everyone to my beautifully furnished new place. Blessed Ash new home." 40 people had confirmed attendance. Perfect. An audience was exactly what I needed. My revenge wouldn't happen in private. It would have witnesses. The morning after my confrontation with my mother, a knock at my door startled me. I opened it to find Mrs. Winters, my next-door neighbor, holding a plate of muffins. "I thought you might need these," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes widened at the state of my living room. "So it's true." I set the muffins down. "What's true?" Mrs. Winters' face hardened. "I saw them, dear. Saturday morning. Your mother and that sister of yours loading your beautiful furniture into a truck." My heart skipped. "You saw it happen?" She nodded grimly. "I thought it was strange, but your mother told me you'd decided to donate it all to Candace as a housewarming gift. Said you were too busy working to tell anyone." The lie made my stomach turn. "And you believed her?" "Not for a second." Mrs. Winters pulled out her phone. "That's why I recorded it from my doorbell camera. I've known Gloria Darnell for 15 years, and I've seen how she treats you." She pressed play on a video that showed a perfect view of my driveway. There was my mother, directing Tyler's truck to back up to my door. There was Candace, laughing as they struggled with my sofa. "I've got more," Mrs. Winters continued. "When your mother moved into the neighborhood, she borrowed my husband's tools, never returned them. Claimed they were hers all along when we asked." She described other incidents. My mother taking credit for community work Mrs. Winters had done, spreading rumors about neighbors who crossed her, always positioning Candace as the neighborhood darling while dismissing me as the cold one. "I kept quiet too long," Mrs. Winters said. "Not anymore. I'll testify if you need it." I stared at this woman I'd barely spoken to before, offering me exactly what I needed: validation and evidence. "Why help me?" I asked. Her eyes softened. "Because 15 years ago, my mother did the same thing to me, and no one stood up for me then. She sent me the video before leaving. Make them pay, dear. Some people only learn when it costs them. With Mrs. Winter's video added to my growing evidence file, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, Rachel Simmons, who specialized in family property disputes. They took furniture worth almost $14,000? Rachel asked after I explained everything. Yes, and replaced it with damaged items. Do you have proof of ownership? Receipts, credit card statements, delivery confirmations, plus security footage of them taking it. Rachel's voice sharpened with interest. You have them on camera? From 2 angles, my security system and my neighbor's doorbell. This isn't just theft, Marissa. It's breaking and entering. Using an emergency key without permission constitutes unauthorized entry. She advised me to file a police report immediately, but to request they hold off on action until Saturday, the day of Candace's housewarming party. Give me time to prepare an emergency hearing for Monday morning, Rachel explained. We'll request a court order for the furniture's return, plus damages. At the police station, Officer Mendez took my statement, reviewed my evidence, and agreed to wait until Saturday to confront my mother and sister. We'll need you to identify the furniture at your sister's residence, he said. Be ready for a call around 7 p.m. With law enforcement on board, I focused on creating what Rachel called maximum impact documentation. I compiled side-by-side photos, my beautiful furniture in my home versus the damaged replacements. I edited the security footage into a clear, concise video showing the entire theft. While organizing paperwork, I discovered something that made my blood freeze. Among my mail, I found a furniture ownership transfer form with my signature at the bottom. Except I'd never seen this form before, let alone signed it. I called Rachel immediately. They forged my signature on ownership papers. That changes everything, she said. That's fraud, a much more serious charge. I examined the fake signature closely. The handwriting matched my mother's attempts to copy my style, a skill she'd perfected years ago when signing my report cards without permission. This wasn't just theft anymore. It was calculated, premeditated fraud. Saturday couldn't come soon enough. My mother and sister thought they knew me, the compliant daughter who always gave in. They were about to meet the woman I'd become. Saturday evening arrived clear and cold. I parked a block away from Candace's apartment, watching guests stream in carrying housewarming gifts. Every few minutes, my phone buzzed with updates from Rachel or Officer Mendez, confirming our timing. At exactly 7:15 p.m., I walked up to Candace's door and knocked. Music and laughter spilled out when she opened it. Her smile dropped instantly. Marissa, you weren't invited. Actually, I was. I held up the opened invitation she'd sent to my address. Mom made sure I got it. I pushed past her into a room filled with familiar faces, Mom's bridge club, neighbors, distant relatives, all admiring my furniture arranged in Candace's apartment. Mom spotted me from across the room. Her teacup froze halfway to her mouth. What are you doing here? She hissed, hurrying over. I came to see my furniture, I said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. You know, the items you took from my house without permission. The room quieted. Mom's face flushed. Don't make a scene, she whispered. We can talk about this later. No, Mom, we're talking about it now. I pulled out my phone. With witnesses. I walked to Candace's TV and connected my phone. The screen lit up with my security footage, date and timestamp clearly visible. This is my home last Saturday, I announced to the now silent room. Watch what happens next. The footage played in crystal clarity, Mom using my key to enter, directing Candace and Tyler as they removed each piece of furniture. Their laughter as they replaced it with damaged items. Mom's voice, crystal clear. She won't fight back. She never does. I let it play until the end, where Mom wrote her note and left it on the table. The guests stared in horror. One of Mom's friends set down her wine glass and stepped away from my coffee table as if it might burn her. "You told us Marissa gave you this furniture, Mrs. Landon," Mom's oldest friend said accusingly. Mom's face hardened. "She doesn't need it. She's just being dramatic." "It's theft, Gloria," Mrs. Landon replied. "You stole from your daughter." Candace burst into tears. "Mom said you wouldn't mind. She said you'd understand once you saw how much I needed it." "And this?" I held up the forged ownership transfer. "Did Mom also tell you forgery was okay?" The room fell completely silent. My mother's eyes darted around, looking for allies and finding none. That's when the doorbell rang. Officer Mendez stood at the door, 2 uniformed officers behind him. "Candace Darnell?" he asked. "We're here about a theft report." Mom rushed forward. "This is ridiculous. It's a family misunderstanding." Officer Mendez stepped inside. "Ma'am, we have video evidence of you entering your daughter's home without permission and removing property valued at over $13,000. The officers entered, notebooks ready. Guests backed against the walls, murmuring. "Mrs. Gloria Darnell?" The second officer approached my mother. "We also have evidence of document forgery. You'll need to come to the station for questioning." Mom's face turned white. "This is how you treat your mother," she shouted at me. "After everything I've done for you?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. Officer Mendez addressed the room. "This furniture has been identified as stolen property and will be returned to its rightful owner immediately. Anyone who helped remove these items from Ms. Darnell's residence could face accessory charges." Tyler, who'd been trying to blend into the corner, went pale. "I have a moving truck outside," I said. "The same items you took, I'll take back." What followed was the most satisfying 30 minutes of my life. Under police supervision, the movers loaded each piece of my furniture. Guests filtered out quickly, avoiding eye contact with my mother and sister. Mrs. Landon paused beside me. "I've known your mother for 20 years. I never thought—" She squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry, dear." Mom sat rigidly in the kitchen, her teacup gripped so tightly her knuckles turned white. When the officer asked her to come to the station, she stood stiffly. "This isn't over," she said to me. "Family doesn't do this to family." "You're right," I replied. "Family doesn't steal from family, but you did." As she was escorted out, her teacup crashed to the floor, shattering against the hardwood. No one moved to clean it up. Candace sobbed on her now empty couch, the stained one they'd left in my home. "What am I supposed to do now?" she wailed. I looked around the empty apartment. "Figure it out yourself." I did. That night, my furniture back in place, I slept better than I had in years. The weight of always giving in, always being the responsible one who got taken advantage of, had lifted. When I finally stood my ground, they called me heartless. But tell me, where were they when I was breaking? If you've ever had to choose peace over people, this channel is your space. Subscribe, not for me, but for every quiet soul who took their power back. 2 days after the furniture recovery, Officer Mendez called with news that made my knees buckle. "Ms. Darnell, during our investigation, we found inconsistencies in your mother's financial statements. She had access to accounts in your name. Did you authorize this?" My blood went cold. "What accounts?" "Several. A joint savings account opened 8 years ago, a credit card with your name as primary holder, and investment withdrawals dating back 5 years. I hadn't authorized any of this. I sat at my kitchen table as Officer Mendez continued, each word hitting like a physical blow. The total unauthorized withdrawals exceed $30,000. $30,000. Money I'd worked for, saved, planned with, gone. I pulled my credit reports that afternoon. The evidence was all there, financial trails leading straight to my mother and Candace. Small withdrawals at first, just $50 or $100. Then larger amounts, $500 for Candace's car repair, $200 for emergency dental work. My mother had been stealing from me for nearly a decade. Then I discovered something even worse. While combing through old emails for financial records, I found messages from potential clients who'd suddenly canceled contracts with me. One email stood out. After seeing your social media comments about client homes being tacky and beneath your talents, we're going with another designer. I hadn't written any such comments. A quick search revealed someone had created fake social media profiles in my name, posting insulting comments about interior design projects, targeting specifically the clients I was pitching to. The IP address traced back to my mother's computer. She hadn't just stolen my furniture and money. She'd actively tried to sabotage my career. Rachel, my lawyer, reviewed everything and shook her head in disbelief. This isn't impulsive behavior, Marissa. This is calculated, long-term exploitation. Your mother systematically siphoned your resources while undermining your professional reputation. All those years I thought I wasn't saving enough. All those clients who mysteriously backed out. All those emergencies that somehow always benefited Candace. It wasn't bad luck. It was my mother working against me. The furniture theft wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the first time they'd been caught. The courtroom felt smaller than I expected. My mother sat across the aisle, dressed in a conservative blue suit I'd never seen before. She'd even styled her hair differently, softer, more maternal, the perfect picture of a concerned mother. Candace wasn't present. She'd accepted a plea deal, agreeing to testify about the furniture theft and financial fraud in exchange for reduced charges. Judge Harriman reviewed the evidence files, her expression growing increasingly grave. When she looked up, her eyes fixed directly on my mother. "Mrs. Darnell, these allegations are extremely serious. Theft, fraud, identity theft, forgery, and financial exploitation. How do you plead?" My mother stood, hands clasped demurely. "Not guilty, Your Honor. There's been a misunderstanding between a mother and daughter." Her attorney stepped forward. "Your Honor, Mrs. Darnell was acting within her rights as a mother. She had access to these accounts to help manage her daughter's affairs, a common arrangement in many families." I watched in amazement as my mother dabbed at non-existent tears with a tissue. The act might have worked, except for the mountain of evidence against her. The prosecutor presented it methodically: security footage, forged documents, bank records, the fake social media accounts created from my mother's IP address. With each piece, my mother's facade cracked slightly. When it was my turn to testify, I spoke simply and directly, describing years of manipulation, gaslighting, and theft. The furniture was just the final straw, I concluded. For years I believed I wasn't good enough. Now I understand I was being deliberately undermined. My mother's attorney tried to paint me as cold, ungrateful, and money-obsessed. Would a loving daughter drag her elderly mother to court over family matters? Judge Harriman interrupted him. "Counsel, fraud is not a family matter. It's a crime." When the verdict came, it was decisive, guilty on all counts. My mother stood rigid as the judge ordered full financial restitution of $43,807, the value of the furniture plus the stolen funds, along with community service and probation. Most importantly, the judge granted my request for a restraining order against both my mother and sister. "Family relationships don't override property rights or consent," Judge Harriman stated firmly. "Blood ties don't grant permission to exploit or defraud. As the gavel fell, my mother looked at me with cold hatred, but for the first time, her gaze held no power over me. News travels fast in families. By the day after the court hearing, my phone buzzed constantly with text messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Aunt Patricia called first. "Your mother has been telling everyone you're mentally unstable and made everything up. I wanted to hear your side." I sent her the court documents instead of arguing. Facts speak louder than accusations. Uncle Robert, Mom's younger brother, showed up at my door with a bottle of wine. "I always knew Gloria had a favorite," he admitted as we sat in my living room. "She did the same thing to me 30 years ago, took my inheritance, claimed Dad wanted her to have it. I never fought back like you did." Cousin Jennifer blocked me on social media, posting long rants about family loyalty. 3 others followed suit. But for every relative who chose Mom's side, 2 reached out with similar stories. Money borrowed but never returned. Promises broken. Manipulation disguised as maternal concern. The biggest surprise came from my grandmother, who called from her nursing home. "Your mother did the same to me," she said quietly. My jewelry disappeared. She said I was confused about where I put it. I believed her until I saw her wearing my wedding ring at Christmas. Then came Candace's inevitable attempt at reconciliation. 6 weeks after the court date, she showed up at my office. "I miss you," she said, eyes downcast. "Mom was wrong. I know that now." For a moment, I almost believed her. Then she mentioned her latest crisis: eviction notice. No money for deposit on a new place. "I'm not asking for much," she insisted. "Just a small loan to get back on my feet." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw the pattern that had shaped our entire lives. She would always need, I would always provide, unless I broke the cycle. "No," I said simply, "I can't help you." Her face hardened instantly. "You've always been selfish. Mom was right about you." As she stormed out, I realized, sometimes family fallout isn't losing people. It's finally seeing them clearly. After the dust settled, I stood in my living room surrounded by my returned furniture. Despite getting everything back, something felt off. The pieces carried memories I no longer wanted: the invasion, the betrayal, the court case. So I sold it all, every last piece. With the money, I hired a designer, a competitor I'd always admired, to help reimagine my space. Together, we created something entirely new, comfortable but elegant, practical but beautiful. Most importantly, it was entirely mine, untouched by my mother's influence. I hired a financial advisor to create protection systems around my accounts. We set up monitoring services, security protocols, and legal barriers to prevent anyone from accessing my assets without extensive verification. "It's like building a moat around a castle," she explained. "Not because you're paranoid, but because you've experienced an actual invasion." The most healing step came unexpectedly. While researching family estrangement, I found an online support group for adult children who had survived parental exploitation. During my first virtual meeting, I listened to others share stories painfully similar to mine. I thought I was alone, I admitted when it was my turn. I thought good daughters didn't set boundaries. "That's what exploitative parents want us to believe," the facilitator explained. "It keeps us accessible for their use." 3 months later, I became a volunteer mentor for young women starting their careers. I taught them what I wished I'd known: how to recognize manipulation, protect their financial independence, and value their own achievements without external validation. During one workshop, a 22-year-old designer asked me, "Doesn't it make you angry, losing all those years to your mother's control?" I considered her question carefully. "I didn't lose those years," I answered. I spent them learning exactly who I didn't want to be. Rebuilding wasn't just about new furniture or protected bank accounts. It was about constructing a life where my value wasn't determined by someone else's approval. 1 year after the court case, I stood in my kitchen preparing for a dinner party. My home had become everything I'd dreamed of: peaceful, beautiful, and completely mine. The doorbell rang. When I opened it, I expected my friends, but found my mother instead. She'd aged a decade in 12 months, her shoulders hunched, her eyes hollow. "It's Thanksgiving tomorrow," she said without greeting. "Family should be together." The restraining order had expired 2 weeks earlier. She'd wasted no time. "I'm busy, Mom," I replied, my voice steady. "I have plans." "With who?" she demanded. "Those strangers you call friends?" "I'm your mother, Marissa. Nothing changes that." Once those words would have collapsed me with guilt. Now they bounced off like rain from a roof. "You're right. You'll always be my mother, but that doesn't entitle you to my time or my home." Her face hardened. "After everything I sacrificed for you." "Goodbye, Mom," I said quietly, closing the door. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt nothing but calm certainty. When my actual guests arrived, colleagues, neighbors, and friends from my support group, my home filled with genuine warmth. We ate, laughed, and shared stories around a table where everyone was equally valued. After dinner, Mrs. Winters raised her glass. "To Marissa, who taught us all what courage looks like." Later, as my last guest prepared to leave, she hugged me tightly. "I filed for divorce yesterday," she whispered. "After watching you stand your ground, I found my own courage." That night, I realized the true gift of my ordeal wasn't just freedom from my mother's control. It was showing others they could break free too. The furniture that once defined my worth had become just objects. My true value lay in the boundaries I maintained and the peace I'd created. Sometimes revenge isn't about payback, it's about peace. And if this story touched you, subscribe right now. Because somewhere out there, another person is watching in silence, needing a reminder that they're not alone, and your one click might help them find it.